Welcome, everyone. We're glad to have you. We'll get started in just a minute. All right, we're going to get started. Welcome to the Office of Illinois Works 2024 IWRS Session 2. Thank you for joining us today. Over the next 3 hours, you will have an opportunity to learn more about the Illinois Works Reporting System, also known as IWRS. The target audience for this session are individuals accountable for data entry, data management, pre-apprenticeship program completion tracking, transition support, follow-up services, or any task related to cohort participants. So your job title might be program administrator, program manager, program coordinator, data entry coordinator, or any individual responsible for entering or maintaining data in IWRS. So my name is Dr. Anna Bedard. I am one of 3 program analysts and coaches who is supporting you this year in the program. And it's my first year in the program, and you have heard me say this if you've been on these sessions before, but I have many years of experiences both in nonprofits and doing capability building for nonprofits. And I'm thrilled to be able to offer my experience and expertise here. I want to introduce our team who is supporting the pre-apprenticeship program. And so I'll just mention Dr. Norman Ruano. He is the deputy director. He's not on the call today, but we do have on the call today our 3 grant managers, and that's Dan Martinez, Steve Scott, and Monica Pruitt. And if you all can just come off mute and say hi, just put your picture on so people can see you if they haven't been on previously, that would be great.
Morning.
Good morning, everyone.
And then I've got also with me Dr. Gia Suggs, who is one of our other training analysts and program coaches. Gia, you want to say hi?
Good morning, everyone, and welcome.
And Dr. Jeff Doolittle. You can see we're really keen on doctorates here at Illinois Works. We're all highly overqualified for our jobs, but Jeff is our virtual production coordinator and helping out behind the scenes. Jeff, you want to come off mute and say hi?
Yeah, hi, everyone. Glad to be with you today.
Great. Thank you so much. So we are the team responsible for the Illinois Works pre-apprenticeship program. We have other teams that are accountable for the apprenticeship initiative, the bid credit program, and career services. So you may need to relate to them at different points, but we're the team responsible specifically for the pre-apprenticeship program. Illinois Works was created as a result of Governor Pritzker's commitment to expanding equity in the Illinois construction workforce. The Office of Illinois Works, in partnership with Southern Illinois University's Center for Workforce Development, developed the Illinois Works reporting system, also known as IWRS. This system allows you to track key information about participants' progress throughout their engagement in the program. And today, you will be provided with information about the Illinois Works reporting system, the IWRS, navigation instructions, intake, training services, and additional tools. And we'll help you get into the system because it will be interactive and you'll be able to follow along while we're doing demos. The objectives of the course are to be able to know and describe what this IWRS system does, explain the relationship between IWRS and the pre-apprenticeship lifecycle, navigate the IWRS main page, add or update participant profiles and intake information, add or update wraparound services and career assessment information, and submit a ticket to SIU to report system glitches, which we hope is not the case, but we all know technology. Please note that this session is being recorded and it will be made available for review on our Illinois Works Partner Guide website. So that should be somebody's putting that in the chat right now. And if you've not already done so, then I would encourage you, I would encourage you to, thank you so much, Steve. I appreciate that. I encourage you to bookmark that page because it's going to be really important to you as we go through the program. Any questions before we proceed to the next section? If so, feel free to unmute your line or you can post your question in the chat. All right, let's just move on. In this next section, really simply, we're going to get to see who's on the call today, and I will just very briefly go over the WebEx features to ensure that you can fully participate in the meeting. I do want to let you know that if you have any comments, feedback, or questions after the training, you can email us, and the email address is being put in the chat. Got that going. Great. Thank you, Steve. So using the chat, let's go to the next slide. Please answer this is introductions. Please answer the following questions: your name, what organization you're from, what's your role, your geographic location, and please, if you attended last Tuesday's IWRS session 1, would you please put an asterisk next to your name? Great. Hi, Sharon, welcome. Good morning, Jackie and Clarissa. And I see we do have at least one who was here last week. Oh, we've got, I think, Latricia, if I'm pronouncing correctly. I think Latricia's been to at least 3 of these things, it looks like. Welcome, Kiara. Welcome back, Juria, Shubra. So I see we do have a fair number of people who have who attended last week. Last week's session was for administrators, and this session is for, as I mentioned before, anybody who really has occasion to go in and input information into the system. So welcome back, those who were here last week. Welcome to those who are joining the IWRS sessions for the first time. Welcome, Gail, Jitan, Yanet. Awesome. It's great to have all of you on the call. We've got about 40 participants, maybe 35 to 40 participants on the call today. It's really great to see you. Let's go to the next slide. We're going to let people continue to put their information in there. But just to walk through really quickly the WebEx tutorial, across the bottom of there's a panel across the bottom. There is a mute button there on the left. And so please keep yourself on mute while you're not speaking. However, anytime you have a question, feel free to unmute to ask your question. And then I want to point you to, if you go, there is a stop video, so you don't have to show yourself. But if you want to ask a question on screen, sometimes it's nice if you actually, show your face, and so you can turn on and off that way. Let's keep going. Great. So raising your hand, and this can be helpful because then it kind of pops up in the participant list. It might make it easier for us to call on you. And next to the raising of the hand is the reaction. So let's see you all give us a little emoji. I've got some laughter going on here. What do we got? All right. And I love this about WebEx, that it's like Facebook where it comes up across the screen. So feel free at any point in the meeting to give us a reaction. Thank you. Lots of smiles this morning. It's great to see. Thank you so much. Let's keep going. Where's our next arrow? And then the chat. That's the last one I want to point out to you. It's all the way on the right hand in the bottom, and you can, if you have, I'm assuming you all found it. And so if you haven't found it by now, then please, you could just open it up by clicking on that button and then introducing yourself. So that's what we've got. Thank you so much. And if you have any comment or question, feel free to put it in the chat. You don't have to come on screen. You don't have to ask live, with your voice. You could just ask in chat if you would like. There will be definitive points in the session where we pause and ask for questions. Sometimes it can be a minute in between, right? And so we want to make sure we don't lose your questions. So if you have something, just stick it in the chat, and then when that pause comes, we will respond to it. And we'll try to respond to as many of the comments and questions as possible within our allotted time frame. Any questions before we proceed to the next section?
Hi, I have one. This is Gail Newcomb.
Again.
I was practicing in the system, and I noticed I do realize people are working in there as well, but it's still running really slow for me. Is that something they're going to work on?
Gail, thank you for that feedback. And Dan knows more than I, but I do know that that is a major issue that they have. We have alerted them to that as an issue overall. And Dave is on the line. David, you want to talk about that? David's from NIU, and he could probably speak to where they're at in their process of resolving that.
Yeah, so we made an update to our servers last weekend that should improve performance, meaning that, if we're all in the system at once, things should be running smoothly. But let me look into this and connect with our programmers just to make sure everything's running smoothly.
Thank you so much. All right, great. Let's move on to the next section. So and this is just, I get the privilege of just doing the high level introduction to IWRS before I pass it on to Dan Martinez, one of your grant managers, who will then be doing the deeper dive. But basically over the next 10 minutes, I'll just be talking about the purpose of IWRS and explaining the relationship between IWRS and the pre-apprentice life cycle. And many of you were introduced to IWRS either last week, or maybe if you were in January at the administrator orientation. The 2024 IWRS session 1, the one last week, was tailored to administrators. So that focused on provider information, managing users, and specific reporting tools. This session, on the other hand, is tailored to individuals responsible for participant intake, training services, and specific reporting tools. IWRS is the data management and reporting system designed to allow you to track pre-apprenticeship program activities. It is the Illinois Works internal facing system for compliance reporting. And I'm sure none of us have tired of the refrain, if it's not an IWRS, it didn't happen, right? So we all know that it is required that you enter data into IWRS in real time as activities occur. That does not mean that the instructor is there in the IWRS like the minute that the classroom starts, right? Or that your data entry person has to do it within minutes of your classroom starting. But it does mean that the data needs to be entered on a rolling basis throughout the program, not saved up for the end of the month, not saved up for the end of the quarter, right? Minimally, you should be entering your data on a weekly basis, if not every other day. All right, so we would recommend every other day that you're going to have a lot of data, but on a weekly basis at the outside. Your Illinois Works grant managers can only use the data that you have entered into IWRS to verify if you are progressing toward your goals and to verify that you're compliant with the program requirements. So, there's emails to your grant manager saying, hey, we've done this, but we haven't put it in IWRS. It's not helpful to them, and it's actually not helpful to you either. So please just enter the information into the system. The Office of Illinois Works, in partnership with SIU, so Southern Illinois University's Center for Workforce Development, designed the IWRS, and it launched in February of 2022. The system has been continually updated based on program requirements and also based on feedback from you. And so we do appreciate your ongoing feedback, Gail, for example, the feedback that you just provided to us. So keep it coming, and we're doing best to accommodate. Due to the custom design, IWRS does allow grantees to track pre-apprenticeship program inquiries, participants, and grantee partnerships. The system also allows programs to track key information about participant progress throughout the program, including their application, enrollment, announcements, career and support service assessments, enrollment and training modules, attendance, training completion transitions, and follow-up post-completion. So the whole way along. And if we go to the next slide, we can see the life cycle. And so if you attended the January administrator orientation, you would have seen this already. We introduced it there. The Illinois Works pre-apprenticeship program requirements are organized in this pre-apprentice life cycle. This life cycle outlines the steps that participants take as they move through the pre-apprenticeship program, and it tracks their progress from the initial program all the way through post-transition follow-up. Each stage is an integral step in preparing participants for their final goal, which, as you know, the purpose of this program is to enroll them into a DOL registered apprenticeship program. So that is the ultimate goal. We do have secondary goals, but that's what we're heading for. And so given this, your program will be required to input your data into IWRS based on this pre-apprenticeship life cycle. For example, your 2024 grantee cohorts will produce results that we will use to identify the program status at a particular moment in time during the program year. So on the screen, what you're looking at is data that was collected from IWRS on January 29th, and this is actually our collective data since the inception of the program. And you can see it's really amazing the impact that we are making collectively, that you're helping us to make in Illinois for our target populations, the underrepresented populations that we're working to move into union trades. And so, wow, over 1,400 inquiries. Just look at this completion, almost 1,500 individuals have completed the program. Over 1,100 have transitioned. And so that's, collectively, we're making such a big difference. So thank you for being our partners. Any questions before we proceed to the next section?
There are no questions in the chat.
Thank you. With that, I am going to hand off to Dan Martinez. Dan, thank you for taking it from here.
Thank you, Anna. All right. Good morning again, everyone. We are going to be doing a little bit more of an interactive session as we go through. Most of the time, I will be, showing you the steps via the PowerPoint slides, and then we will have a chance to practice those steps. I'd ask that during those moments, really all of them, make sure you're following along with me. If you work ahead, you might miss one of the instruction points that I'm going to share. If you start to fall behind, you can use the turtle emoji to let me know. You can throw something into the chat. So there are different ways so that we can all stay together on this. During this section, we're going to discuss signing into IWRS. So hopefully everyone that was on the administrator training session last week has this kind of down pat. But for those of you that are new, we're going to be working through this section as well, identifying the roles and signing into IWRS. So speaking of the roles, we have three main roles. The service provider, they have access to grantee participant information and different dashboards. That's going to be the majority of users of IWRS. So your outreach and recruitment coordinators often are going to be accessing that to enter inquiries and applicants. Certainly your data entry coordinators, they're going to be focused on data entry throughout the entire process, but also transition service coordinators and student support services and wraparound services. A lot of organizations call those case managers. That typically will be the service provider level. The service provider program administrators is just what it sounds like. It's generally the program administrators or managers that not only will need access to participant information, but may also need access to grantee information and some specific reports that maybe aren't even available to the service providers. And then there are super admins, and that's essentially the Illinois Works staff, so your grant managers, and they have access to a little bit wider suite of program tools, a little bit more access to verify information. There's also an additional level, of course, and that's when we all need to go to the help desk and the programmers for additional support. But we will be talking about how you submit help tickets through that help desk later in the training. So your program administrators are the ones that decide your level of access. So if there's a question about your being able to access something, that's really something that you would want to talk to them about. All right, so before we begin, we need to make sure that everyone can access Illinois WorkNet. So IWRS, the Illinois Works reporting system, is actually built on Illinois WorkNet. And some of you may be familiar with Illinois WorkNet from WIOA programs or the Department of Human Services programs, certainly WARN rapid responses. A lot of data is contained in Illinois WorkNet. So it's a very powerful system that a lot of different programs, agencies, organizations use. And so you may already have established an Illinois WorkNet account through some of those, or it may have been established in advance of this training in order to ensure that you have IWRS access. So by a show of hands, can I see if you have never accessed IWRS and you don't think you have an Illinois WorkNet account? go ahead and raise your hand. So I'm going to be looking for that. So again, this is if you have never accessed IWRS and you don't think you have an Illinois WorkNet account. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands. If anyone's having difficulty with the hand raise feature, you can also unmute yourself and let me know right now, because it seems like everyone should have access. Okay, great. So what you see on your screen is Illinois WorkNet, and that is how you would, there's a sign up button there that's highlighted in red, and it shows the pop-up that would appear, the screen that would appear so that you could create your Illinois WorkNet account, but it seems that everyone either has access already to IWRS or at the very least has an Illinois WorkNet account, so we won't spend any more time on that. We do want to mention again that the 2024 grantee manual is really the origin information for everything we're doing in IWRS. There are definitions about IWRS statuses and services in the grantee manual, so you definitely want to make sure you're referring to that constantly. If you ask one of your grant managers a question, we're probably going to go to the grantee manual to find the answer. We definitely will check there first. So if you have not yet accessed the 2024 grantee manual, the link has just been provided in the chat. Please go ahead and download that and put it somewhere on your computer where you'll be able to frequently access it. Okay, so we just talked about Illinois WorkNet, but we now want to talk a little bit more about accessing IWRS. So hopefully everyone has had their IWRS account established, but we're going to walk through a couple different ways of accessing IWRS now. So there are 3 ways to access IWRS. So you can follow along with my instructions as I go, but please note that the third and final way is going to by far be the easiest. So you may just want to watch the screen and listen to my explanation and then wait for that third option, but it's completely up to you. So the first option to access IWRS involves going to the Illinois WorkNet site. So you'd go to illinoisworknet.com and I believe a link for Illinois WorkNet is being placed in the chat. And in the upper left-hand corner, there will be a login option. So you would click login and you would enter your username and password and actually log into Illinois WorkNet. Then from there, you could scroll down to state partner resources. And as I mentioned, there are a lot of organizations and agencies that already use it. The Department of Human Services, WIOA, ICCB, the Department of Employment Security. We're actually below all those, so you would need to click View More, and then additional organizations or programs would appear, and you would see the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program. You would click on that, and what it would do is it would take you to the Illinois Works Partner Guide, which you already received a link for earlier today. Anna had strongly suggested that you bookmark that site. I agree wholeheartedly. So at this point now, we're just at the Illinois Works Partner Guide. And from there, you would select, if we go to the next screen, you'll see it, the Access Illinois Works Reporting System. So you've already logged into Illinois WorkNet. And so by clicking on that, it should take you directly to something called the groups search page, in which you may have more than one option of different programs that you access under that. We would select Illinois Works, ILWRS. So that is one method, and then it would take you to the IWRS system and the partner recruitment and engagement screen, which you see on the screen right now. So again, that's one way of accessing IWRS. A second method would be, again, to start at Illinois WorkNet. So you'd go to illinoisworknet.com and you'd select login in the upper right hand corner, just the way we had explained it before. But then instead of scrolling down and looking for those state resources pages, you would select the orange My Dashboard. So if we go to the next screen, you'll see this. Once you've logged into Illinois WorkNet, a My Dashboard would appear, and you could select the drop down for the My Dashboard, and what you see on the screen would then appear. Now, I do want to mention, if you're doing this on a phone, or if you have your screen your web browser reduced in any way, it may just show the personal tools with a tab for the blue partner tools. And so you would then need to click on that tab, because on the partner tools side of this screen, the first option there is a circle with 3 individuals there, and it says Customer Support Center /IWIS. And you would click on that, and that would then take you to the groups search page, where you would select ILWRS, which would then finally bring you to the IWRS system. Okay, so those are 2 ways to access IWRS if you don't have a link, if you forget where the partner guide is and you lost your bookmark. Everyone can probably remember Illinois WorkNet, right? So by going to Illinois WorkNet, you can definitely access IWRS. But the absolute easiest way to access IWRS is just to link directly to it. So that link will be provided to you in the chat. It actually was a little bit earlier today when we were talking about IWRS already. So you enter that link into the, you would simply bookmark that link, and when you select it, it will even skip that group search page. It will ask you to log in, but then it will take you right to IWRS. So Steve had just put it into the chat now. It's the one that says apps.illinoisworknet.com/site administration/ilwork/admin/index. So kind of a long title. That's why you want to bookmark it rather than just trying to memorize it. But that will take you directly into IWRS. So are there any questions about the 3 different ways to access IWRS?
At this point, Dan, there are no questions in the chat.
Okay. So we're going to go ahead and practice it so that you can, have a chance to log into IWRS. I think we may have one question. Are there any other questions? Or you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi. Name is Keith. So I was under the impression that I did have IWRS not certification, but access, and I was told that I'll get access today. And everything else was going smoothly, signing into everything, but up until clicking on that last link for IWRS, it says I do not have access at the moment.
So when you get to the groups page and it says ILWorks, is that what you're referring to?
I actually clicked directly on the link that came in the chat.
Okay. So
And
you
it
clicked
came
on the
back.
link that came through the chat. You entered your username and password.
Mm-hmm.
And then it said what?
Said I'm not authorized. It said I must be authenticated and authorized to use this page.
All right. So Keith, what organization are you with?
YMCA.
This is Lashonda. This is Chief Supervisor. He'll be added to IWRS. He just started with the organization.
Okay, great. So I'll let you 2 take care of that. Once,
Thank you.
if you do have any other access, if anyone else has any access issues, again, one of the first things to do is to check with your program administrator. As we just heard, they're still establishing access for one of their users. But if you do need assistance, please message your grant manager directly through the chat in WebEx. And so if Monica is your grant manager, go ahead and send her a chat. If Steve is your grant manager, send him a direct one-on-one chat rather than putting it into the whole overall chat. If I am your grant manager, or if I'm the grant manager for your organization, then either send a direct message to Steve or Monica. They're going to help out with my grantees during that time. And then we also have, and as we already heard, a representative from Southern Illinois University that will assist Steve and Monica then to ensure you have access. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen just briefly to walk through some of those options that we had just talked about. Let's see, show meeting controls. Let's see, and it's so this is Illinois worknet.com. Obviously, right here is the login. That's one of the ways we had discussed. So you could first click there, and you'd be able to log into Illinois WorkNet. But then you would still need to get to IWRS in some way. One way in which we discussed you could do that would be to scroll down, all the way down to state partner resources. Here's state partner resources. And as I mentioned, we are here under the view more. So we would need to say, yes, let's view all of them. And then you'd have to scroll down again. And there's Illinois Works, right? So that's one way. And that would take you to the partner guide, which would then, take you directly into IWRS. The other way, as we mentioned, is to go ahead and log in to Illinois WorkNet, and then this dashboard appears. So once you select that dashboard, you will see the Customer Center WIS, and then you'd be able to select that, and that will take you to this group search, where then you can access Illinois Works. So I'm going to go ahead and log off because I'm going to show you right here. You can actually probably see my bookmarks. And my second favorite bookmark right there is IWRS. And all I do, I took that link that we had put in the chat and I click on it. It asks me to log in. I go ahead and I let Edge remember my username and password personally. But that takes me directly into IWRS. So I'm going to go ahead and hand things back over to Jeff, and I'll ask if anyone has any questions. No? Perfect.
No, no questions in the chat.
All right. So we'll move along to the next section, which is discussing IWRS itself, the main page, and I'll go through a little bit of navigation. So you're welcome to follow along with me as we do this. I'd ask that you don't click on anything unless I tell you to, because there's a couple of instructions there. But again, really, we're just acclimating ourselves to the IWRS main page from the perspective of someone with service provider access. So note, you'll some of you may have additional items on your main page due to your role, and then when I share my screen, you'll see some of those things that aren't on that you may not have on your screen. Okay. If there are administrators participating in this section, we keep referring to the administrator session from last week. If there are administrators that did not participate in that session, please, you can go into the partner guide and view that session, or if there are those that want to revisit it, you can always go to the partner guide, and under the training materials and videos, you'll be able to see some of the professional development that we place there. Okay, so the navigation bar, it's being highlighted in red there on the screen for you. And this will be present on all of the IWRS screens. So if you are in IWRS and then you do not see this navigation bar anymore, first of all, scroll up. but if you can't see it, that means you're no longer in IWRS. So the first thing to notice, we're going to work from left to right. The first thing to notice is that there's the Illinois Works logo and the Illinois WorkNet logo side by side. Clicking on either of those will take you back to the Illinois WorkNet main page. So you can go ahead and do that now if you want. You'll just see that it takes you back. to get back into Illinois Works, I would suggest you just click the back button of your browser if you do that. So I'm not actually sure why someone would need to access Illinois WorkNet from IWRS, but that feature is there for you in case you need it. So again, then return back to IWRS so that we can continue walking through the dashboard or the navigation bar. So my verbal slip there, I mentioned the dashboard. That will take you to one section of some reports. So if you click on the down arrow of dashboards, you should see two different options. One is assessment, which we don't use, and the other is the ILWRS reporting system dashboard. And again, please don't click on those. We're not actually navigating to those different screens right now, but you can click on the dashboard down arrow just to see that menu expand. We will talk more about the Illinois Works reporting system later in this course. The groups functionality essentially will return you to that groups page where you can select IL Works, which will ultimately take you back to this main page. So there may be times where you open up a different series of windows or you go in through reports, but you want to come back then and navigate into a participant's profile. So you would use the groups page, groups tab or button in the navigation bar in order to do so. So from then, we're going to skip some of the other icons. You can see on the screen here, there's a little image of a person. That's user management. That is, again, for some of the program administrators. That's how LaShonda will get Keith access. There's a folder that's for a grantee level, program level information. There is a little chart that is for access of user information, and then the bar chart is for the reports. But we're going to talk now about where it says hi GSUGS. It should say hi your username there, and if you click on that, a drop down should appear with several different options. It should say my partner dashboard. There should be a help request. Again, we're going to come back to that feature later at the end of this session, but that's an important one. I want to stress that is not available on every screen, especially when you get into the reports. You won't see that help request button under the drop down of your name, but it is available in most, if not all, of the participant screens, and definitely from this home screen. So you should see a help request button there if you're following along on your own system. And then you'll see an option to select Illinois WorkNet. That will take you back to Illinois WorkNet. Illinois WorkNet messages. If you have any messages coming in through the system, it will take you to that, and then the ability to log off. Sorry, every time I start talking in these WebExes, my throat seizes up on me. So then once we've gone over this dashboard, I'd like to talk a little bit more about the partner engagement and management section. So this is the main screen. Right now, we're viewing the partner engagement and management tab of the partner recruitment and engagement screen. Sorry, I got those kind of mixed up. But can you go back one slide? I guess, I'm sorry, I'm looking at something else. So go ahead and go forward 2 slides, please. There we go. So it's showing now in an underline that the following tabs: partner recruitment and engagement is your main tab. That's where you'll search for your participants. Your partner engagement and management, we'll talk about that in a moment, and then your work plan report. So the main tab, partner recruitment and engagement, that houses all participant information, and that's where you'll be able to access individual participant profiles. So as you reach out to individuals and go through the recruitment phase of inquiries and leads, and then wanting them to fill out an application, this is where you will go to access that information. But then even later on during the, the cohort and the training, this is how you would access their individual profiles to enter their test scores, or to update their profiles because you've provided them with different services. So this is the program, participant recruitment and engagement screen. You'll be able to search based on their name. You're able to export any information that you've searched. So if you are just looking, there's a customer status drop down there. If you select, you want to see everyone that's in your program that's in an enrolled status, you could then search on that, and then the export button would allow you to download just the individuals that are in an enrolled status in your program. You can also see there next to the export button is a student support needs report. That's where you can access it's a quick access to one of the reports that will show you what we call red flags based on participant attendance or post assessment scores. As per the grantee manual, in order to successfully complete an individual training module, students must achieve at least 80% of the required attendance, and they must achieve at least 70% on their post-assessment scores. So this report would allow kind of a quick visual to see whether there are any, or the number of individuals that maybe have red flags in the program. And then to the far right is an add participant button. And that's how you're going to start adding individuals into your system. So they, again, start off as inquiries, they move through the system as applicants, and then as enrollees, and then they finally graduate and they become complete. So we will walk through that later in this training. We'll get into the adding the participant portion. The next tab on this main screen is partner engagement and management. The partner engagement and management tab allows you to add and track partner information. So you may already have a system internally that does this for you. And if you do, that's great. Of course, Illinois Works requires all grantees to engage with a range of partners, especially for wraparound support services, student support services, transition services. There aren't going to be any organizations, even our most, the largest organizations that we work with, that are capable of doing all of it, right? So we highly encourage you to engage with partners to make those services available to your participants. And so you are required to track partner information and engagement. And one way you can do that is through this this tab on the IWRS main page. When you select the tab, 3 sub-tabs appear. You can see them on the screen. There's partner. That's where it allows you to add a new partner or search among existing partners. There's engagement. That's where you can then track engagement with partners, add contact notes, and enter, and I think even have follow-up settings. And then the contact notes themselves would be then accessed and viewed on the contact notes tab. So under the partner sub-tab, you can see that there's the name, the intermediary. So that's the provider's name itself. And you can search for a specific partner. There we go. We have a screen where it will then display all the partners that your organization has engaged with. To add a partner, you would select the Add Partner button. And then a system will provide a pop-up window with a form in it. You would simply complete that form and select Add Partner information. So we do ask that you enter, or we do require that you enter all of your partners. So even if you're keeping your contact notes in your own system, that's fine, but we do need a listing of all of your primary partners in IWRS. The next tab, sub-tab under partner engagement and management is the engagement tab. So again, if you don't have your own system for managing this, then you can begin adding engagements here. An engagement is any professional interaction with a partner. So meetings, phone calls, speaking invitations, sometimes they're visits. One of the partners that a lot of, or one of the types of partners that a lot of our existing users have are union halls or registered apprenticeship programs, and they invite them to come and speak at their training and with the cohort themselves, or maybe they do a tour and they take the cohort to those registered apprenticeship programs. So you can track those engagements through this sub tab. To add an engagement, you would simply click on the Add Engagement button there highlighted in red, and then a new pop-up form would appear. You would select the name from the existing partner list on a drop-down, and add the service type and add the engagement date. You can also update those engagements by actually clicking on the engagement itself and then selecting Update Engagement. So if there's any additional information that you'd like to track regarding engagements, like the follow-up dates I mentioned, the descriptions of the activities, a contact note can be added to the engagement by selecting that partner, and then the Edit Engagement form will appear and select Add Contact Notes. I think if we go to the next slide, we'll see that. So here's the contact notes. This feature allows you to search through some of the different contact notes that your organization has entered, and you can search by partner name, you can sort by comment, by subject, or even the user who entered the contact note. Okay, the last tab on the main page of IWRS is the Work Plan and Report tab. So when you select that, your work plan will appear. No one's going to have any information in this yet because this is built off of the work plan that you're submitting to your grant managers. And but this is a really interesting way of viewing information in IWRS. Essentially looks at things based on the cohort and the times that you have told IWRS you're starting instruction and ending instruction, along with the key outcome metrics that your organization has agreed to. So if your first cohort, you've established a goal with Illinois Works of having 20 individuals, that goal will display there. And then it will also display the number of individuals that you actually have enrolled in your system. Now, again, none of you should have anyone enrolled in your system, and we certainly don't have your cohorts even established there. But just know that that's how this report would look. It's actually not that dissimilar from some of the monthly compliance reports that we will be sending you. So some of our grantees find it easier just to utilize the compliance reports because that's the official information coming from the Office of Illinois Works. But this is a way for you to kind of view things on the fly a little bit. So I know I covered a lot of information on the main page of IWRS. Does anyone have any questions before we practice and you can navigate around that main page in those 3 tabs?
None
No
in the chat.
questions? Okay, great. So I will go ahead and share my screen again. And you can follow along with me, or you can, if you remember the different sections, this time you are allowed to kind of work through it a little bit. But again, there we go. We are here on the main page of IWRS, and we've been talking about these 3 tabs. For the most part, probably 95% of your time is going to be spent on this tab here. the partner recruitment and engagement tab, you know, maybe as high as 99%. It's really where most of the work is completed. I'm going to go ahead and I have access, as you can see, to all of the providers, but this is a example one that I have access to, so I like to just default it there so that I'm not inadvertently accessing anyone else's information. But so this first tab, as I mentioned, is the partner recruitment and engagement. This is where you would begin to engage with your participants and enter their information. We are going to, in the next section, I think it is, walk through adding a participant. So please ignore that for right now. We're going to get to it. But instead, let's just focus on these three tabs here at the top. I did walk through explaining that you have the ability to search by different statuses in IWRS. So as you can see right now, when I come into this test account, I have over 49 entries, right? And across 5 different pages. And maybe, you know, I'm looking for all of my enrolled individuals, as I've mentioned before. So I would go to customer status here, and then I would go to the drop down and select enrolled, and I would click search, and that would bring up all of my enrolled individuals. So now I'm only working with 12 entries. And this export report that I mentioned here would allow me to pull out just those 12. It's whatever I've searched for will wind up going into this export report. This export report will then download as a CSV file, which is essentially will, you know, open in Excel and allow you to view any data you need. There's a lot of different information. I can't remember, I counted it before. I think it was just under 50 at one point. It may have gone over 50, but a lot of different information that you can export. By default, there are 4 different items that are pre-selected that always join any report that you're selecting. But this is an excellent tool that the grant managers use all the time as well. And then, like I said, you can also search on a particular person's person's name, and then that will just bring up the people that are in enrolled status that also have that name. That's not what I wanted. Okay. We talked about the partner engagement tab, and then the sub tabs here where you can add partners, where you can record engagements with partners, and you can view contact notes. So again, we're not going to actually be entering any partner engagements or partners and contact notes right now, but we just want you to be aware of you know, how to access these and answer any questions that you might have about them. And then finally, we have our work plan and report tab, and that allows you to you know, view a work plan. I don't think I have one set up for Chicago Test Provider. I may. There we go. And here, this is for 2022. It shows kind of by cohort that I was I was supposed to enroll 20 individuals. I only actually enrolled 4, and these were my start dates. So this is a live number here. This actual enrollment, these would be live numbers coming from IWRS. The rest is static, and those need to be entered and created by your grant manager. Okay, so those are the 3 tabs that we had gone through. I'm going to turn things back over to Jeff, and we'll move on to the next section. Any questions? Any questions about anything we've gone through?
There are no questions in the chat.
All right. I feel like I've somehow lulled you all to sleep, but all right, we'll see if we can be a little bit more interactive on the next section. Um, let's see, we're actually scheduled to take a break before we begin this next section, but we've only been going for about an hour, so I think we might be able um, to go through. Actually, you know what? This is kind of a long section, so I think we will take our break a little bit early. Let's go with a 10-minute break. It is, well, it's 10:31, so let's come back at 10:41, and we will then jump into section 6. And that's where you will actually get to add a participant. We're going to add it with very specific information. So please come back at 10:41 and we'll get started with that. Thank you. All right, welcome back, everyone. Hopefully that everyone had a chance to stretch their legs and wake up a little bit. Again, this is going to be a much more interactive section. We're going to have an opportunity to actually enter a participant into IWRS. So this section, section 6, we're going to walk through adding a participant, completing a pre-screen assessment, updating an application. We're not going to go through the entire application, but we'll see how you complete an application, how you would go through the intake processes. So completing a career assessment, completing a wraparound services assessment, and all those things that are required to be done during intake. So it's important to note, though, please do not follow along in IWRS as I walk through these processes. At the end of the section, as we've done before, there will be a practice section. And during that practice section, I'd ask you to follow along with me because I'm going to give you some specific instructions, particularly about when you're entering a participant and how to enter that and what name to use so that we can identify it as a practice participant. So here we have the pre-apprenticeship life cycle again. We're talking about data entry, and we're going to cover the following steps as part of this section. Really, we're talking about the outreach and recruitment, the application phase, the intake phase, and starting to work on the wraparound services and student support services sections of the life cycle as well. We'll learn more about the life cycle and how IWRS interacts with those sections during the next onboarding session, IWRS session 3. But for now, we're going to start with these. I think it was five sections. So the first step in the life cycle is the outreach and recruitment. Outreach and recruitment provides potential participants with information about your program, about your pre-apprenticeship program, with the objective of gaining their interest and also seeing that qualified candidates can apply for the pre-apprenticeship program. So you'll want to visit section 4 of the 2024 grantee manual, where it discusses different techniques, provides you with more information, and gives you some tools to support your program and the staff with their outreach and recruitment efforts. In addition, the grantee manual session 2 had quite a bit of information on outreach and recruitment. So if you weren't able to attend that training session, that recording is available on the Illinois Works Partner Guide under professional development. So when we talk about adding a participant lead, the primary goal of the outreach and recruitment activities is to identify those potential participants or those leads. Participant leads are individuals who might be interested in enrolling in your pre-apprenticeship program or gaining more information about your pre-apprenticeship program. And the aim is to funnel those leads through a screening process and transform the qualified individuals from leads into applicants. So from the participant recruitment and engagement tab, one could select add participant. It's that blue button on the right hand side. Again, please don't follow along with me in IWRS yet. Just go ahead and watch and listen. Once that button is clicked, a add participant form appears, and you can see that on the screen. It's simply asking for the person's name, their phone number, their email, the type of lead that they are, and then if you have more than one grant, you will have a provider information there where you'll be able to select the drop down for the particular location or grant that you are assigning this participant or this lead to. So then you'll click submit and add case notes. The pre-screen assessment will then appear, and this is where you'll get to determine if the potential applicant meets the basic requirements of the program. So the assessment has 5 eligibility questions and a final inquiry. So the 5 eligibility questions are: do you have an interest in making a career in the construction industry. Extremely important, right? We definitely don't just want seat fillers. Ultimately, that hurts your programs. This is a performance-based reimbursement grant, right? And the amount of funding that gets reimbursed or potentially available for reimbursement to your organization increases as a person goes through the program. So enrollment is actually the smallest funding level, and then completion increases, and then transition is the largest. And so if you start off with individuals that aren't really serious about making a career in the construction industry, they're not very likely to make it through to completion, and definitely not into transition, because that's transitioning into the construction industry. So your organization is actually going to wind up losing out on all that funding because the very first question here wasn't adequately screened. So that's just something to keep in mind. The second eligibility question is, do you have an ability to attend the program, right? They need to know that what the hours of your particular program are. Some are holding morning classes, some have evening classes, some are all day classes. So it's really what your organization established, and the hours and the days of the week and things like that. So they need to be able to have the ability to attend the program. The third, do you have a high school diploma, GED, or high school equivalency? That's a very important one to pre-screen. They must have provided you with that proof of high school completion prior to enrollment, prior to beginning the program. So in past years, it was simply a requirement that the individual that they provided that to you and you kept it in their paper file. This year, as we're about to see in a couple of minutes, you're going to be required to upload it into IWRS as part of the intake process. Are you at least 18 years of age? Certainly, that's one of the program requirements that is pretty binary there. There is one exception, and that is if you are one of the high school programs that was pre-approved to run the Illinois Works program within a high school. So they do have the ability to enroll individuals that will turn 18. But everyone else, it's a very hard and fast rule. They must be 18 prior to the start of your cohort. Are you an Illinois resident? Again, that's a pretty clear one. They must be an Illinois resident. For those that are near some of the border states, you should know that they can transition to construction work or registered apprenticeship programs in another state, and that's still a perfectly fine, viable outcome. But they must be Illinois residents to participate in the pre-apprenticeship program. So those are the 5 eligibility questions. Then it also asks how you heard about this program. You can see that kind of highlighted there up in the upper right-hand corner. A lot of times it's social media, certainly email, family and friends. We want you to record that information and take that very seriously, because we're very strong believers in program improvement. We want your marketing dollars to go far. So it's important to capture that information on the front end as well. So if the answer is yes to those first 5 questions and eligibility is met, again, if they're high school programs, then 2 of those could be no, but they still have to be able to meet the requirements that they will be 18 and will graduate with their diploma. Then you can move forward to completing a program application. So when we talk about an individual being an inquiry versus an applicant, after the pre-screen assessment has been submitted, you'll receive a confirmation on IWRS. It's kind of a pop-up that says the recruit has been updated. Please fill out an application. So you'll want to ask yourself, is the participant lead ready to complete an application? So if they are, you can move right forward into completing that application. If they're not, you can just simply save them as an inquiry and return to them later. So I think we had a question pop up. I can go ahead and take that now, since this is somewhat of a long section, so I don't want to move too far away from it. Did somebody have a question?
Hey Dan, it's Jackie with Skills. I just have a real quick question. So for that pre-screening section, since we're one of those that work with in-school youth who are under 18, if we mark no, will it let us move forward?
Yes.
Okay.
So for everyone, if you were to answer no to one of those questions, IWRS will prompt you with a step you could take, such as referring somebody to a different program, or if they don't have their diploma, you can refer them to a GED program, or if they're under 18, you should counsel them and follow up with them when they are 18. So it does provide those suggestions, but if you are one of the pre-approved high school programs, you can select no, and then later it will ask if the person meets eligibility requirements, and you can still say yes because of your ability to provide that high school program.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I don't think any of the new grantees in this, everyone's welcome to attend this session. So Jackie, thank you for being on here. But these sessions are primarily for our new grantees or new employees of existing grantees. I don't think any of our new grantees are high school based programs. So for the majority of you on this call, that's not something you really need to engage in or worry too much about.
Perfect. I was just on to catch the changes. So I'm
absolutely.
A little bit.
Yep, absolutely. Just like some of the new grantees might choose to join us on Thursday when we talk about some of the updates. But we're going to cover them in these sessions as well. So that's not something that you should feel required to do, anyone. All right. So as I mentioned, you can, at that point, you're able to move directly into filling out the application in IWRS, or if the individual is not ready, it will simply save them as an inquiry, and they'll be able to then access that lead profile at a later date on the participant recruitment and engagement tab. So assuming they would be ready, and we're going to kind of play that game today later when we're doing the hands-on practice, you would then need to fill out some information for Illinois WorkNet. So you would enter their first name, last name. I think some of this carries over, so it might pre-populate for you. But what wouldn't pre-populate would be the date of birth, the second, the confirmation of the email address. So you have to enter the email twice, and then the person's zip code. And I want to pause here and mention that this is essentially the same information the program administrators that you're needing to request of your staff in order to create an IWRS account for them. And it's the exact same process. What it's going to do is it's going to check to see if an Illinois WorkNet account exists for that participant, just like we check to see if one exists for your staff member. And if it does, it will link that existing Illinois WorkNet account and establish an IWRS profile for that established Illinois WorkNet account. If it does not, then it will simply create an Illinois WorkNet account and create the IWRS profile at the same time. So in a very similar manner to what you do when you create one for your staff. So after you search for existing applicants, it will again either link it to an existing account or establish a new one and build that IWRS profile. And then you'll be able to click on complete initial application with the applicant. So the application, you see a little sample one here for Tiger Woods. The system will pre-fill any information that was already entered in the pre-screen assessment, but then you'll have to fill out more information such as contact information, the address, some additional demographics, answer some questions regarding their education status, any other considerations. It has its own section, and then a work history section. So you can save and return to the application at a later time, as long as you've clicked save at the bottom. It doesn't automatically save with each entry. So on this given page, if you've entered their street street address information, but you maybe don't have quite everything, or you're not ready to go on to the work history section, you can fill out this section, click save, and then return to the application at a later date. So any questions about this initial intake before we do some practice?
None in the
There are
chat.
no questions in the chat, Dan.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I'm going to set up my screen again, and we will, I'll ask that you take this slowly with me, because again, there are certain things that I want us to all do at the same time. So let me share my screen. Okay. Okay, so one thing I do want to point out is that you may have been logged out of IWRS already. And it's important to know that IWRS doesn't change the screen when it logs you out. The screen just is static. So you won't always know it if you've been logged out until you've already started entering information onto that particular screen. And then when you go to search or update or do something, then it tells you that you've been logged out, or you realize, I should say, that you've been logged out. So you may want to click on the logos in the upper left-hand corner, and then just click on the back button. So you come back into IWRS to ensure that you are still logged in, or you can click on groups. This is one of the ways that I typically go through it. I'll click on groups and go back to the ILWRS group search and select that, and that way I know I'm still logged into IWRS. Okay. So we're going to work through this one at a time. I'm kind of stalling here to just make sure that everyone is logged in. And you should be at this participant recruitment, main page. Okay. And then what we're going to do is click add participant over here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to click add participant. And what I'm going to ask everyone to do is, on the last name, make sure the last name is test. So you can build multiple test profiles in IWRS. So today you might be making one, you might find a need to make another one, a month from now. Always have the last name of test. Okay, that's one way in which we can then easily filter out that information at a later date. We don't have a fancy test environment for everyone to use. So this is just a method that it easily pulls out all the erroneous data and practice data that you may have established. So that way you can maybe establish one test profile that you leave as an applicant, and one test profile that you put into an enrolled status, and maybe another test profile that you later complete. They'll all have the same last name. They'll all be in the test family. And the first name you can, put whatever you want. You can use your first name. You can use a family member's first name. I do suggest you use a name that is relevant to you in some way, because you may have 10 other individuals in your organization that are also creating test profiles. So that way you can remember kind of which one was the one you created. So oftentimes people will use a spouse or children's name or grandchildren's name or parents' name, but something that's relevant to you, so you can remember, oh yeah, I created this person's account. All right. And then for the phone number, I recommend, it doesn't accept just doing 555s. So I recommend we all just do the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. And then the email address, please go ahead and use your first and last name of the pretend participant that you created. So I'm just going to put Dave Test at text.com, and that will get us to that. And then this type, these are the different types of leads that you can have. Again, these are defined in the grantee manual. So I'm going to just randomly select warm lead inquiry here. And if you have multiple provider accounts, so if you have different grants operating in different locations, you may have a drop down here, or it may just default to your one and only. But if you do have multiple ones, just go ahead and pick one. Again, I use our Chicago test provider. And once everyone has that established, we're all going to go ahead and click submit. So go ahead and click submit, and then I will pause to make sure we're all on the same page. So again, once you have this filled out, go ahead and click submit. And then we should receive the participant pre-screening pop-up. Okay. Is anybody not at the participant pre-screening page? Okay, great. I'm going to assume everyone's there then. So from here, you can go ahead and answer these 5 pre-screening questions. This is what I was describing before when Jackie had asked the question. A lot of times if you answer no to one of these, it will prompt you with the appropriate next steps, because that person is not eligible for participation in the program. So so you can follow along with those. In this case, I'm going to answer yes to all of these. And then how did they hear about the program? So you can select one of your favorite marketing methods. It doesn't matter what you select. Again, this is just a pretend profile we're creating. Now here we get to pre-screening result. Okay. Now this is an important one. Now, based on their answers, you make the judgment. So this is what I like to point out that question that Jackie had, because it was an excellent one. Ultimately, those questions that we answered above do not determine whether the person can move forward or not. It's your selection of this pre-screening result. So they may not have met the pre-screening requirements. They may meet them, but they were just interested in hearing more about the program. They're not actually interested in applying. They were just gathering information. Or hopefully they meet the requirements and they are interested in participating. So that's the one that we're going to select today. Now, ideally, everything, as Anna had mentioned earlier, we want to have entered in real time. And by that, we mean, typically within the next day or two. There are some things that the grantee manual actually requires to be entered within 24 hours, and certainly no longer than the week that it was initiated. But so in some cases, you might need to run something backwards. You had an open house event and you weren't able to get things entered. So you can, adjust the date of the pre-screening to accurately reflect when the information was obtained. Okay. Then you can select an option for the sex of the candidate and some of the demographic racial information. So once you have done that, go ahead and click submit and add case notes. You'll notice it's not going to prompt you to enter a case note. I believe it used to, but we have remove that. So again, once you have gone through the pre-screening information, click Submit and Add Case Notes. You'll see a pop-up window has appeared and it says the recruit has been updated, and please fill out the following information to add as an applicant. So I'm going to click OK. I'm going to pause here to make sure everyone can get to the screen. So again, we had talked about it just a moment ago. They may not be ready to be added as an applicant. If that's the case, then you could go ahead and just click X and step out of this process. They would be saved in IWRS as an inquiry. And so you could certainly test that, but I'd like to stay in here and stay as add as an applicant. And we're going to then proceed to enter the information that is required for Illinois workNet to search to see if there's an existing Illinois workNet profile. And if there is, it will attach the IWRS profile to that Illinois workNet profile. If there's not, it will create the Illinois workNet profile for the individual and then create the IWRS profile on top of it. Now, it's important to know that unlike other programs, participants will not be entering information into IWRS. There are other programs where they established an Illinois workNet profile because that person actually comes in and maybe does career assessments, or they can live update a resume or build a resume in Illinois workNet. That is not the side of Illinois workNet that we use. We are again using IWRS, which is a different component of it. And so at no point will the participants be entering information directly into IWRS. That is exclusively the purview and domain of your staff. All right, so let's go ahead and finish entering some of this information in. We're going to, put in an appropriate date of birth for them to be 18 at this time. We're going to re-enter it. Again, it needs to confirm the email, the pretend email address that we used previously. Again, you have to assign it to the grant profile that you are want it to display under, and then put in a zip code. And I always put in the work zip code again, just to try to keep some consistency whenever I create test profiles. Once you've created all of this, go ahead and click search for existing applicants. And you will see that IWRS does that. Illinois workNet searches to see if they can match an individual with that name, date of birth, email, and zip code. In my case, it will not find an existing profile because Dave Test has never existed before, I don't think. And status, a new account has been created. So you can see here that they've created a username for him. He even has a password, but again, they will not be, the participants will not be accessing IWRS, so that's not relevant. And then a new account has been created for him. All right. Did everyone get to this part where you've created an applicant and an Illinois workNet account? I should ask, is there anyone that's not? Sorry, thank you. Everyone's giving the thumbs up. Let's just stay with that. Go ahead and give a thumbs up, or let us know that you received it. If you are having difficulty, go ahead and raise your hand, and or enter a question into the chat. Looks like we had a hand raised. I'm not sure if that was to ask a question or to be affirmative. So if you do have a question, go ahead and unmute yourself. Roger, I see the thumbs up. All right, perfect. Okay, so everyone got to this section. Go ahead and click on this, and this will take you to the applicant or the application itself. So as I mentioned, when you're in the application, you'll be able to, it'll pre-populate with a lot of the information that was there. Of course, like any application, the red asterisks here denote something that is required. So these are required fields. So as you go through that, you'll have to make sure that you answer any of the required fields. These are all very important. A lot of this information we are required to report back in terms of number of veteran applications, right? Information that we are required to report back to the state legislature. So very important information to answer as we go through. I should point out one item here. I always like to go to the work history and let people know that there are a couple different options here. And I'm not sure if any of this has changed, but it's important that if you say, I have not worked before, this will be my first job, that the employment information disappears. But if you simply say that you are unemployed and you're looking for work, it's still going to ask for employer information. They want to know the last employer that individual had. And if you've selected, I am unemployed and I'm actively looking for work, but you do not answer these questions, your application, this person's application will not be complete. And until this application is complete, your grant manager cannot verify the enrollment during our monthly compliance session. So it's very important that you pay attention to not only the other sections, the demographics, the education, the other considerations, but on this work history, ensure that it's properly filled out, and then you'll be able to go through that without any problem. So you're welcome to play around with this. There's a lot of questions on this application, so I'm not going to go through it all right now. Instead, I'm going to go back up to the groups section here and just return to IWRS. So while my system does that, I think that was the end of the one-on-one practice. So I'm going to hand things back over to Jeff. All right. Any questions about the practice or the initial intake information that establishing the applicant account or the participant's profile that we just had? Okay. So now let's talk a little bit more about that profile that was just created. Again, you can just follow along with me. We're going to have a chance to practice all of this information in a little bit, and in fact, we're going to provide you with some links in the chat to help with filling out the next stages. So for right now, again, please just follow along, and then we will we'll walk you through our practice together again. So after you would complete the application, you could then go into the participant's profile, and we'll be able to do this even though we didn't complete the application for the test accounts. And you will see 3 tabs in that person's profile. First is the overview tab. This provides an overview of each portion of the participant's profile and their status. You can see on the screen there's a lot of green, some red, some yellow. You may at times need to refresh this screen in order to update it, but you'll ultimately see these flags, and you should know what they mean. So the green is good, right? That means no action needs to be taken, that all requirements have been met. It doesn't necessarily mean, for example, that somebody completed a training and that they have their certificate's been uploaded and everything. It just means that the status that they're in currently they've satisfied all of the information requirements. So if they're just in the planned status portion, then they're green, they're good. There's no action that needs to be taken. Yellow means that they should review this flag and determine if any action needs to be taken. It simply means that there's action that could be taken depending on the timeline and the status of your program, and it's something to keep an eye on. And then, of course, a red flag means that action needs to be taken, that a requirement needs to be met, and it's not being met, and that this should be reviewed. And if it's for attendance, that means that maybe some makeup hours might be needed. If it's a post-assessment, then a post-assessment needs to be retaken. So this just gives a very quick visualization of the status of that particular participant. The next tab is intake. And so all of the participants' intake information will be maintained on this tab. And this is the one to, kind of focus on at the beginning of the program. It's where that application that we just saw will be housed, even the pre-screen assessment that we filled out. This is where the proof of high school diploma, GED will be uploaded and entered. The interview sheets will be entered, interview scores, commitment agreements, wraparound service assessments, career assessments, things like that. So that's all housed in that intake tab. Then there will be a program completion and follow-up tab, and information regarding the participant's program completion status would be entered here. Follow-ups, once a participant has graduated, follow-ups are maintained there. It's important to know, for those of you that haven't memorized the grantee manual cover to cover, that programs are required to follow up with graduates every 90 days for a year after program completion. So that program completion / follow-up tab is where that takes place. Then there's the transcript progress report tab. Once a participant has been enrolled and begins training, that tab will provide information on their progress, and later when they're done, be able to report out a transcript of their completion. There's actually a fifth tab that will appear later once a person is enrolled, and that's the training and services tab, and that's where a lot of the other information will be displayed. But that tab doesn't even appear yet because none of our participants are in an enrolled status. So we'll cover that as part of IWRS session 3 next week. Okay, so moving on to the intake tab, we see that we've highlighted here complete application with the customer. So because we all exited out of that application without fully completing it, it shows that it still needs to be completed. But what I want to focus on is the ability to upload the proof of high school graduation. So as discussed earlier, all the participants must provide confirmation of graduating from high school or attaining their high school equivalency or GED. So under step 1 of the intake tab, IWRS provides a linked text that you can select to upload that documentation. So and again, there's no need to follow along in IWRS right now. Just follow along on the screen, and then we'll come back to IWRS to do some of this. But you would click on that link text. It will provide a pop-up that will ask you to choose your file, add a description, such as Dave's official high school transcripts. Then you would upload that, and then that upload will then appear. You can see it here in that red box as it's labeled highschooldiploma.pdf. I think my access allows me to delete it, so there's a red X there. I don't believe you'll have that red X, but maybe. I'm always surprised by the different views that other people have. So that's the high school diploma. Then moving on, we have the standardized interview. an official Illinois Works interview is required for all applicants. This takes place outside of IWRS in the grantee manual. I don't know if it's exhibit 4. There's an exhibit with the actual interview sheets that allows you to gather insight into the applicant's interests, their long-term goals, and what they hope to gain from the pre-apprenticeship program. These interviews must be conducted by two staff members who then record separately the applicant's answers. They provide independent scoring. Then what your program will do is calculate the average of these two scores. And based on that average score, that will be one of the determining factors as to whether or not that that applicant can be offered a spot in your pre-apprenticeship program. So it's exhibit 4 in the grantee manual. And so that form must be used. Once those interview sheets are completed, then you're required to upload those interview sheets along with entering the interviewer names and the average score that was attained. So what you would do is, you can see the red arrow there. You would, under step 2 of the intake tab, you would select add, edit interviewer information, and you would select whether or not they were selected for interview or not selected for an interview. Then you would be able to, I'm sorry, that's at the drop down. Then you would be able to click on the blue button for adding and editing the interview information. That's where you would enter both names of the interviewers, their first and last names, and then the average score. So you'll notice when you see those interview sheets that the highest possible score is a 40. So, if interviewer 1 gave a score of 35 and interviewer 2 gave a score of 37, then you would then enter both of their names and enter an interviewer score of 36, right? So you enter the average interviewer score. You do not enter the percentage, right? That's one of the things that some folks get wrong there. So you enter the average interview score. And then finally, once those have been entered, underneath all of that is linked text that says upload the interview sheet. And you can click on that and you'll be able to upload. You can either upload the interview sheets as a single file or as 2 separate files. So I do ask that you take a look at your interview sheets before you upload them. Oftentimes we get interview sheets that are uploaded upside down, they're uploaded sideways, or sometimes they're blank because they fed them into the scanner wrong. And so they only scan the back sides of them. So please make sure you take a look at your interview sheets that you've scanned in, the PDFs, and ensure that they're acceptable and prior to uploading them. All right. Then moving on through the intake screen, the next step is enrollment status. So this is step 3 of the intake on the intake screen, but it probably will not be the next step of the intake process. We ask that you do not move someone into an enrolled status until their first day of training. And this year, we're actually asking that you do not enter them even then until you have received the okay from your grant manager. Due to system updates and other issues, there are some things that need to be established in IWRS for your organization before you can enroll individuals. Because a lot of things happen when you enroll somebody. It pulls in a lot of data that establishes that person's training profile, and none of that information is established yet. So certainly it won't hurt the test providers or the test examples that we're all creating, but just know that Right now, in terms of your actual program and their actual participants, we're not enrolling anyone into a cohort yet. And this will be covered a little in a more detail in the next section anyway. All right, so there are 3 enrollment statuses though. So enrolled is the one that, as I just mentioned, is entered after an individual attends instruction. So they cannot be marked as enrolled until the first day of attendance. So you might have interviewed someone, selected them for participation, sent them their acceptance letter. They may have even responded and said they're coming on the first day of April and they'll be there. But if they never show up, if they never attend, then you should not have put them into enrolled status. You would move them into what we call administrative withdrawal status. That will be something that takes place on a different tab. And we'll cover that as part of our training as well. So another status is not enrolled. There are actually different not enrolled types, depending on whether they were not enrolled because they declined to participate, or they were not enrolled because it turns out that they were not eligible for some reason, or because there's a not enrolled because they could not provide the eligibility information. So oftentimes that's because a person graduated, say, from high school, but they cannot provide the proof. So unfortunately, they would be moved into the not enrolled, cannot provide eligibility option. These options are defined in the 2024 grantee manual. Then the third type of enrolled status is re-enrolled. This is for a participant that voluntarily dropped out of a program and then maybe has returned at a later date. So maybe you had an individual that dropped out of cohort 1 and then is re-enrolling in your program in cohort 2, something like that. And then once you have enrolled an individual into IWRS, or once they're ready to, you would select that add enrollment status, and the pop-up here would appear. You would keep it on enrolled. It asks for the social security number. So that is not required, but it is highly recommended. As many of you learned during the grantee manual sessions, Illinois Works is conducting a 10-year longitudinal study on all of the participants. So we are tracking them through every method possible to ensure that we can continue to be informed as to whether or not they completed their training in a registered apprenticeship program and actually made it to journey person status, or maybe they chose not to do that and they chose to go a different route. Maybe they went for additional training or education or higher education, or maybe they just went to work in the labor force. We're tracking all that information. So in order to measure our program's effectiveness and the outcomes, 8 years down the road, that social security number is extremely helpful. Sorry. So the state of Illinois, I'm going to pause here for a moment. The state of Illinois updated our security systems, and at various times I have to sign back in and receive a second authentication factor. And before my computer shuts down, I need to do that. So bear with me for one moment as this authenticates. All right, I'm back. Thank you. Did I see a question? Did someone have a question as I was doing that? Are there any questions in the chat?
I do see one. It's one is asking, how would we administer a returning participant that was enrolled in a previous cohort with another program provider and now wants to finish the cohort at your location?
Okay, so that's an excellent question. There's a lot of there's several different steps to it, but Primarily, you're probably going to need to have a separate conversation with your grant manager because, like I said, there are several steps to it. But there's something to keep in mind, and that is that primarily Illinois Works wants to operate on a cohort basis, right? So that means that in order to be eligible to participate, everyone needs to be there essentially on the first day. You know, we can't have a rolling enrollment where, you know, maybe only 10 people were there for the first week, but by the second week we've added another 5, so now we have 15, and by the third week we've found 5 more people that want to join, and so boom, now on the third or fourth week we're finally up to that 20 number that was our original goal. Unfortunately, that is not allowed. If you need to delay the start of your cohort, if you think that's going to benefit you, you can request pre-approval to do that through your grant manager. But your entire instructional group needs to participate as a cohort, and that information is in the grantee manual. And the reason I explain that is to address the question of, well, what about an individual that is returning to finish a the program? So it's going to really depend on how much of the program they originally completed, whether or not they can engage and be part of a cohort. Certainly if they only have 1 or 2 training modules to go and they would have graduated, they just wound up not even, maybe it's just that they weren't able to complete the hands-on portion and some of the work site. There are accommodations that could be made for that, but that needs to be addressed through your grant manager. Okay, hopefully that answered your question. So again, we were talking about when it comes time to actually enroll your participants, you'll select the enrollment status, the optional social security number, and then this is very important, selecting the proper cohort. I just had a little discussion here. Thank you, Juan. I just had a little discussion here about the cohort, participation. So it's important to select the proper cohort for the participants, and then the enrollment date. Now, this is very important. Again, you want to make sure that you are entering the information in as real time as possible, but you can also make sure that you are selecting the proper enrollment date, and that should be that first date of instruction. So if for whatever reason you're not entering things that evening or maybe the next day, you can still select the proper enrollment date. Then you would click save, and that enrollment status would update. Also under step 3 is the commitment agreement. So there's linked text there under the enrollment status box where it says upload a signed agreement. This is where the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Training Program Commitment Agreement is uploaded. That agreement is a written agreement between your program and the participant that clarifies the participant's rights, their obligations, and your pre-apprenticeship training program. It also serves as the FERPA waiver, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, which is a federal law that allows participants who are 18 years old or older and have entered into any educational institution the right to control the disclosure of their personal identifiable information in their educational records. Without that signed commitment with the FERPA waiver, that participant is not eligible to participate in an Illinois Works program. So they must have signed that agreement, that commitment agreement. So this is extremely important. It's one of the foundational documents that each individual must sign, and it's intended to be signed during the first day of instruction, potentially during the Illinois Works orientation section. So that would be signed and then uploaded into IWRS. Then the next section is step 4 on the intake tab, the wraparound service assessment. This assessment is meant to be completed during the intake meeting as a one-on-one session between the participant and the wraparound service coordinator. So it's essential that everybody reviews Section 6 of the Grantee Manual, the 2024 Grantee Manual, to have an understanding of what the Illinois Works expectations are regarding wraparound services, and then the wraparound service assessment. So it's also important to not only for your organization to have that understanding, but for the participants as a whole to have an understanding of what services are available to them. And they need to have that before you conduct this wraparound service assessment. So during orientation, it's really important to make them aware of the different services that that you're essentially going to be screening for in that wraparound service assessment, because all of our wraparound services are required to be opt-in, and in order to opt in, they need to be fully informed. So once you're ready to do that screening, you would click on the wraparound support services screening tab, and a list of guiding questions will appear. So usually the wraparound service coordinator or case manager would be sitting with their computer kind of on a one-on-one basis, asking these questions to each participant. And the participant will opt in or out of the services depending on their response to each of those questions. And again, I can't stress this enough, that it's your staff's role to offer and not assign services, that participants must, opt in. So we mentioned this during the grantee manual training, but I'll mention it again. Your program cannot just say, okay, everybody gets a gas card or everyone gets public service transportation assistance. These are things that they must opt into. So that being said, after the assessment has been completed, throughout the program, participants' needs might change. So even though they can only take that assessment once, services can be manually added to their wraparound service goal throughout the program. And so they can opt in or out of any wraparound services. It is not a final determination of whether they have to receive this service or whether they cannot receive this service. Those can always be manually adjusted throughout the training. And we'll cover that. I think it's in session 3 next week. All right. So the final step, here we have it highlighted a little bit, is the orientation career assessment. So this is listed under a career assessment tab. This is a paper assessment. So each participant must complete a career assessment during the orientation process. The career assessment is meant to capture information about the participant's career readiness, their primary career goals, secondary career goals, and when they expect, what kind of timeline they have for moving forward into their construction career, particularly with a registered apprenticeship program. And unlike the wraparound service assessment, this can be completed by each participant in a group setting using a hard copy or paper, printout of the assessment. So the assessment is in the grantee manual and can be printed for each participant. It identifies participants' needs, including, resume writing, interview skills, and some of their goals regarding construction. And then once those are, completed by the participants, they're entered into IWRS by clicking on the blue button, Add Career Assessment, and it will produce a pop-up form that allows you to then select the assessment type, the date, and answer the information about that the participant answered on that career assessment. And notice I just said the assessment type. That's because we have 2 assessment types. we have an orientation career assessment, and then we have a pre-transition career assessment. So it's the exact same assessment, of course, it's just the time in which it's taken. The orientation career assessment is required to be taken, during orientation. The pre-transition career assessment should be taken about 3 to 4 weeks before the end of your instruction. So about a month before graduation, they should be taking the pre-transition career assessment. And, that'll be covered in a later training. But it's important to know that these should be influencing your entire program, right? When a person fills out that orientation career assessment, your transition services coordinators and your case managers should be viewing that to determine whether or not you need to schedule tours with a certain type of registered apprenticeship program, or you should be reaching out to engage with a certain type of registered apprenticeship program. Maybe you've never had worked with tile setters, right? You primarily you have great relationships with carpenters and painters and the electrician registered apprenticeship program, but you don't have anything with tile setters, and that orientation career assessments come back, and there you go. 1 or 2 of your participants are interested in that. That tells your transition service coordinator that they need to, get out, build a relationship with tile setters, and make sure there's a pathway, a bridge for your participants, if that's ultimately what they choose to do. All right, so I know I talked a lot there. Do we have any questions before we proceed to the next, to the practice?
Dan, we have a whole thread here.
Okay.
In the chat. Let's see. All right. So Patricia is asking, since the social is not required, however, it is needed for the enrollment process, can you share a best practice on how other organizations are requiring their social security numbers?
They're just asking. I mean, there's nothing, there's no secret to it. They require, the diploma or the GED. They require, a driver's license or state ID, or birth certificate to establish the age. They're required to provide a proof of residency, right? So that could be a residency card or a state ID or a driver's license. And then, they simply ask for the social security number. Now, again, that's not required. So they're asking for all these required documents, and there's one in there that's not required. But so a lot of time there isn't any issue with that. But if the participant, does not have one, then that's something that your wraparound services coordinator should take note of, and they can work with assisting that person in making sure that they're able to get one, because it's not going to do them much good if they can't, if they're not eligible to work, or they can't work upon graduation, right? So that's something that stands out right away. But if the individual just doesn't want to provide it, at this time, it's just not required. So I don't have any other tips in terms of convincing somebody to provide it if they don't want to. But, again, it is ultimately not required.
Thanks, Dan. I do have a couple other questions from Jackie. Since the career plan has to be entered into IWRS, can it be completed while sitting with the participant, just like the wraparound service assessment is?
It can, but we do require the paper copy to be in the participant's paper file. And any documents, the grantee manual, I think makes note of it, but in general, all documents are required, even if they're not required to be in IWRS, and they're just paper file documents, they're still required to be held for at least 3 years. So, yes, you can sit with the person while they fill that out, and you can even enter it directly into IWRS. as they fill out their paper form, but you do need to retain a copy of their paper form.
Great, thanks. And then, yeah, and no more questions. Steve is just clarifying in the chat that a social security number is not required for enrollment.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry if I wasn't clear on that.
I think, yeah, I think you would,
Okay.
but just, you know, so everybody else is clear.
Okay.
And that's all we've got in the chat.
Great. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again, and we will walk through some of the steps that I had just gone over. Okay. So you should be back at the IWRS main page. That's the participant recruitment and engagement page. If you're not, there's a couple different things you could do. You could make sure you're logged off, and then using your link, log back in. You can go to groups, and that will take you back to the section where you can select ILWRS, and that will ultimately take you back here. So there's a lot of different ways of refreshing your screen. You should see, I'm going to go ahead and move this to applicant. You won't need to do this because you shouldn't have that many in your system, but you can see I focused just on my applicants, and here I have, where's my annotations? Here I have Dave Test. That's the one I just created today. So I'm able to select him from this list. I also could have, just searched for Dave right from my screen, and it would have just brought up Dave for me here. To access Dave's profile, I'm going to click on Test, and that will bring me to the Overview tab. All right. Did anyone have any issue accessing the person that they had created? If you had an issue, go ahead and put something in the chat or unmute yourself, and we can try to figure out what's going on with that. Okay, we're on the interview tab, and what I want to point out is that there's nothing here, right? I mentioned before that there's oftentimes you need to refresh, and so once you click on that refresh button, then some of these will appear. Again, we don't actually, Dave Test, my pretend person, is not actually enrolled, so we don't have anything listed here for training. That would generally be the bulk of your flags that you'd want to pay attention to. And but again, these are just kind of ways in which you can get a quick overview of each of your participants. I will mention that very often there are little blue icons with next to each one. Those are really helpful. They explain what the green, yellow, and red actually mean. So if you have a question about why this is displaying, you can select it, and that might explain it for you. Okay. What we really wanted to do was take a look at the intake tab. So we'll wait to go there for a moment. I will show you the program completion and then the progress report screens. So because we're just going to view those, the program completion allows you to set different completion statuses. I think I had mentioned before that if you offer enrollment to somebody, but they decline to participate, or they say they're going to participate, but they never show up, you would never have enrolled them, but instead you would come here and you would select a status of administrative withdrawal for them. But again, we're not going to do that right now. This is also where you would follow up with graduates for a year after participating. So there's this active tracking. That is where that information would be entered every 3 months for 1 year for your graduates. And then the transcript progress report tab, probably one of the least used but that is where you can run a transcript report. Okay, let's go to the intake tab. So it's the second tab here where everyone should be. As I discussed just a few moments ago, these are essentially set up into steps. Step one is completing the application. You'll see that there is linked text to the pre-screen information, so we could pull that up. There's the application itself, so you can see that there's not linked text saying the date that the application was completed, so you know it's incomplete still. So this is a little way for you to visually see that you still have work to do. It's very important that these kind of data checks are done before compliance, right? You could have done all of the other steps, but if you have forgotten to enter one piece of information into the application, your program is not going to receive compliance verification for that individual for that month. And it's going to take a whole nother month for that to be reviewed. So it's really important to make sure you're doing some data validation and quality control on your data process. So you want to make sure that that application would be complete. Then we talked about uploading the diploma or the GED, high school equivalency. So this is where that would be done. We actually have a link that we can provide you in the chat on the instructions for this intake section. So in the partner guide, in addition to the videos that we record, there are PDFs walking you through different sections, giving you step-by-step instructions, essentially what we're doing here live, walking you through via PDF. So we can share the instructions for this section, and then you could use those instructions as the practice diploma. So if we could put in the chat the instructions. Let's see here. There we go. Thank you. Oh, well, that was the interview sheet here. I'll do the instructions. So these are the instructions for this section. Oh, I guess that was. Oh, it had been listed as an interview sheet. So this can be used as the diploma as well. So download that. You can view it later, but you could use that as a diploma and practice uploading it. So I'm going to choose file here, and I actually have a couple of just kind of dummy files that I typically use for practice. Let's see here. So I'm going to grab my dummy high school diploma, and I'm going to upload it there. And then I'm going to put a description. This is Dave Tests Diploma, and select upload. And now you can see here that there is a diploma available for me to view. So if I click on it, what happens is, each browser is going to be different. Oh, well, I'm going to get a failure here. I think it didn't actually upload. Each browser is going to be different in the way you've set up your particular browser to use, but typically you'll receive a notification and then you can view it. So that's the diploma. I'm going to keep moving on rather than trying to correct that. Then the same process would happen with the interview. So again, under the section or step 2, we have the ability to select the interview status. So we're going to say that Dave was selected for an interview. We have a pop-up that says that the interview status has been updated. So that's good. Then we're going to need the interview sheets. We can have that in the chat. You can download that. It's in the grantee manual, or right here in IWRS is a link to the interview sheet. So we can select that interview sheet and download it right here as well. And then you can use that as a proxy again for uploading an interview sheet. You would click on this linked text right here, upload interview sheet. And very same process, right? You would choose the file that you want to upload. Here is the interview sheets. You would select them, update the description. I actually logged out, I exited out of there. And then you would click upload and it would then display under interview sheets. All right, then you would want to enter your interviewer information. You would select this and you would enter your interviewer names. So we have Monica and Steve are my interviewers, and they had an average score. One scored Dave at 37, one scored Dave at 39. So that's a 38 average, right? And I could save that. And now they're entered here. If you make a mistake, you'll have to just simply re-add the interviewer information. It won't delete the old one. Maybe it was a different score. Maybe it was a 38.5, and so it'll include both the mistake that I made and the new updated score. And essentially, we will just look as your grant managers when we're doing the data verification. We'll look at the most recent one. All right. Does anyone have any questions about step 2? All right. Hopefully you're all working and clicking and getting to experience some of this information. All right. Then we have, we're going to skip enrollment status. Like I said, it's on section 3 or step 3, but very often it's one of the last steps you would use. So we're just going to stay here and in step 3 though, and go to the signed commitment agreement. Remember, this was the agreement that I said is crucial to a participant participating in the program. So they would have to sign this, date it. A staff member has to sign it and date it as well. So you'll do that. I think the commitment letter was just uploaded into the chat. Thank you, Steve. So make sure you download a copy of that, and you can use that as a proxy here as you play around with your test participant. But you would, same process again. You would choose the file, you would rename it, and then you would upload it, and it would be available here for you to view. Nope, wrong one. It would be available here. All right. Then we're going to go to the wraparound support services screening. So go ahead and click on this. This is in step 4. And you'll see the different questions that are available. Based on the response, an additional question may appear. So this very first one, transportation costs. Do you have reliable transportation to and from the program? Yes. Then it asks, well, what is your primary form of transportation? Select all that apply. So I might say that I either drive or I take the train, right? Or the person might say no. I need assistance with transportation because my car is broken, or I don't have money for gas, or maybe I take public transportation, I take that train, and I need assistance with the train fare. So you would similarly go through the rest of the questions with the participant, and you would provide their responses. A couple things to note. Again, this is the only time they actually go through the wraparound service assessment, but they can always opt into services or opt out of services later in the program. So they may have answered, do you have a computer that will allow you to participate in online instruction? And they may say no. But it turns out your program might not have any online instruction, right? And the resume writing and interview prep and job searching and all those other things, maybe you have a wonderful computer lab that they can use. So they really don't have a need for this. That's okay. Even though they selected no during this screening, and that wraparound support populates into their profile, at a later date you'll be able to select the status for that as having been evaluated but not required, right? So that's an example of them opting back out of something that they initially thought they might need. One thing to note for you, for most of you, this won't be a change because this is the first time you're seeing it. But for some of our existing grantees, digital literacy is a new wraparound service that we've added to this questionnaire. And then right below that is other wraparound support services. So again, I had talked before about how it's important to make sure that you are sharing with your participants what services are available and how, how you can support them. The other wraparound services, I've had grantees say, oh, well, the participants selected that because they were saying, yes, I have other supports that I use. I use my family members. I use my friends. That's not what they're asking, what we're asking for here, right? We're asking if there are other supports that the participant needs from your organization, right? So that's what the other wraparound service support services question is about. Are there other support services not listed above here, right? Are there things that we didn't list above here that they're going to need assistance with? Maybe it's food insecurity. There are other things. In fact, the grantee manual goes over several of them that they may need assistance with. So it's important to ask those questions. And then based on the responses, if they've responded in a way that means that they need that support, upon clicking save, it will automatically load those requested services into the person's profile. And we'll see more about that again in the next training. So go ahead and answer those, especially try to answer some in ways in which might trigger the need for support on a couple or on all of them. And that way you'll be able to see what we mean. All right. We're going to go back up to this step 3 enrollment status. And for the sake of this, we are going to go ahead and enroll in your practice individual. So we're going to click and say enrolled, and we're going to put them in our very first cohort. And if your cohort hasn't started yet, and that's most of you, just go ahead and leave today's date. That's fine. Or you can change it to Monday if you like. If you do have a cohort that has started already, you can backdate it to the date that cohort started, and then go ahead and click save. And then I should highlight that the enrollment status has now updated in this table. So you can see the enrollment date I used was February, even though the day that I entered this information is March. All right. I think I need to conduct the wraparound service screening. So you all should have completed this already. I'm going to go ahead and do mine. And I'm going to click save. And then I'm going to update my screen. Let me move. I'm clicking on the overview tab, and now I'm going to come back into intake. And what that does is it refreshes the screen, and now it will allow me to add my career assessment. Okay, you can see above that the wraparound services screening that I just completed is now there, and I can view it. I can't change the answers, but I can view them. All right, so if I scroll back down to that career assessment, this is the last step of intake. Again, not necessarily chronologically, just on this page. So we can select this, and based on the paper career assessment that they've filled out, you'll go ahead and fill this out. So this was the orientation career assessment. I can change the date that it was, taken. Maybe this was taken, in February. Do you have an up-to-date resume? Yes or no? And just go through and fill out the career assessment. I'm going to close mine. So while you fill that out, does anyone have any questions about this intake tab and the different steps that we've gone through?
None in the chat.
This is Gail. I'm sorry. Can you repeat that last part? I was still filling out the wraparound.
Sure.
Okay.
So down here on step 5, and I pointed out that even though it's maybe the last step on this intake tab, this isn't necessarily the order that things will happen in real life chronologically, but we have step 5 is the career assessment. So you'll select the add career assessment button, and you'll fill the participants for the orientation will have filled out a paper career assessment form. And based on that, you'll then enter in this information. The grantee manual states that this information needs to be uploaded into IWRS within 24 hours. So they should be filling this out at the orientation. We requested that all grantees include the Illinois Works orientation for up to 4 hours on their curriculum, precisely to give the participants time to fill out forms like this, but also to receive information about what the Illinois Works program really is. But so that they could fill out this, information such as this career assessment. So we're selecting that it's the orientation career assessment as opposed to the pre-transition career assessment. We're selecting the date that they filled out their assessment, which is different, potentially different from the date in which you're entering this into IWRS, and then filling out the rest of the information as they have answered it on their orientation career assessment. And as I mentioned when we were on the PowerPoint slides, this information should be viewed. It's not just historical data that gets put into IWRS. Your transition service coordinators, your case workers, your support staff should be viewing this and identifying where the preliminary interests lie for your participants. One of the hallmarks of the Illinois Works program is that it's not trade specific, right? All of the pre-apprenticeship programs are meant to provide an overview to all the trades to individuals. And so it's totally fine if somebody comes in saying, I'm joining this because I want to be a plumber. That's great. And they can go through the program and then go into the plumber's registered apprenticeship program at the end of it. But they may choose during the program because they've never really had exposure to some of the other trades, they may choose a different one. Maybe they fall in love with being an iron worker. Or maybe they realize they have a lot of talent for, being a painter. There are different things that they may see exposure to. And so it's important to make sure that you're providing that. But at the same time, it's important to recognize where the initial interests of your cohort lie. All right. Any questions before we exit the practice portion?
None in the chat.
All right, great. I'll hand it back over to Jeff. And again, I think we're about to go up to a question screen. But here we go to, yeah, there we are. The next section should be section 7. And we're going to talk about the Illinois WorkNet help desk. So occasionally a feature or function of IWRS is not going to work as expected. And it could be because you don't have the required access that you need to do something. It could be that IWRS specifically is designed to not allow what you'd like to do to be done. It could be because IWRS is not working properly. It could just be because you're logged out and you don't realize it. So you may just need to close your browser and log back in. But in the cases where it might be something that you're unable to identify, or because IWRS might not be working properly, in these situations, you'll need to submit a request for help via the Illinois WorkNet help desk. And that Illinois WorkNet help desk can be accessed. Oh, I'm sorry, my screen was malfunctioning there. Is accessed again on any participant screen in the drop down underneath your name. So sometimes when you are adding applicants to IWRS, I think this actually came up as a question before, the system might report that an individual's profile already exists. That's an example where it already exists under one grantee, and now a different grantee wants to work with that individual, or I should say that individual wants to work with a different grantee. So what has to happen is a help desk ticket is entered, and that all gets sorted out with the assistance of Illinois Works. Maybe you've uploaded the wrong document into a participant's profile, right? We were just uploading some dummy documents and some test documents, some work instructions as diplomas. Maybe you accidentally grabbed the wrong PDF and clicked upload. So that would be another instance in which you might want to submit a help desk ticket. Or we had looked at that overview screen with the green, the yellow, and the red flags. Maybe there's a flag that you're trying to clear, but you cannot identify the reason why that flag exists. So, or you're positive that you've cleared the flag, but that it still exists. So those would be reasons to access the help desk and enter a ticket. So again, in order to access it, you would click on your name, the drop down there in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, and the second option should be a question mark with a help request. And that when you click on that, it will open up a new window, and that window will be the Illinois WorkNet help desk. Sorry, that was loud. So this is also known as the help desk's homepage, and there are a couple items on the homepage that we should be aware of. The first off is on the left-hand side. We've kind of highlighted in red there 4 icons. There's a little house that is the home icon, and that will take you back to the screen that you see. The next is a little inbox, a little box with some paper in it. That's the My Tickets icon, and that would take you to a screen where it would show any tickets, any help desk requests that you've already submitted or that were submitted and you were copied on. Then the next two are a service catalog and a knowledge base. Illinois Works doesn't really use those last two. So the only two that you really need to focus on are the house and the inbox. So the home and the My Tickets. At the center of this page is information for other Illinois WorkNet programs and projects. So again, this is not something that Illinois Works generally uses. So we're not going to review any of the information in there, although you're welcome to scroll through it on your own. But our primary focus will be in the upper right-hand corner where it says New Request. And that will be where you can select, click on that to complete a new request. So if you were to click on that, a new screen would appear, and that is the new request form. When you are looking at the new request form, there's a space for a short title of the request, an area in which you can provide a very thorough description of the issue. There's an area, and I'll go through this when I share my screen. A category drop down, you'll select pre-apprenticeship program. A CC area, that is where you can enter someone's email address. Generally, you'll want to enter your grant manager's email address there. A lot of times, grantees forget, and then they send me a message saying, hey, can you help with this help desk ticket, or can you provide me a status update of this help desk ticket? I can't access your help desk tickets unless I've been copied on them. So again, I'll show you all this when I share my screen. The existing requests, I had mentioned that inbox. You can click on that and you'll see all of your open tickets. You can also see some of the resolved tickets, any that you have submitted or that you were CC'd on. So Jeff, can you go to the next screen? I think that shows the My Tickets. There we go. Yeah, so this would then display the existing requests that you have. The second column there, you can see in green, there's a lot of, it says resolved, resolved, resolved. So that's always good to see. And you can, select any, a lot of times, the SIU staff or your grant manager will provide feedback or ask questions in each one of these. You'll receive an email notifying you that something has been updated in one of the tickets, or if you're in the help desk section, you can just click on the title and it will take you to that and you'll be able to see any of the information. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we can walk through entering a new ticket. Before I do that, does anyone have any questions? Okay, let me share my screen. Okay. So one thing I would like to point out, I'm not sure if you can see it, but at the very top of my screen is a notice on one of my tabs that it's about to time out. And this is something I should have highlighted before. So as you work in IWRS, you may wind up opening up different tabs. And if one of the tabs times out, all of the tabs time out. So the information you're entering on a screen won't save. And that's because you've actually been timed out. So even though the screen that we are all viewing on my desktop it looks live, if I go to these other screens, it indicates that it's been timed out. So you very often need to close any of your existing windows, and then you might log off and log back in, or go to the groups and just have it pull back up for you. Since I'm not going to be working in IWRS, I'm not going to mess with that right now. I just want to let everyone know about that feature. It's a security feature of IWRS. If you have multiple IWRS tabs open, the one that you're not using can time out, and that will time out all of your tabs. Okay. So I did that kind of fast. In the upper right-hand corner here, I see my name. Hi, Dan Martinez. And I click on that, and the drop-down appears. And the second option here is help request. By clicking on help request, it opens a new window for me on the Illinois WorkNet help desk. Right, we had talked about here on the left-hand side, the home and the inbox. But we also talked in the upper right-hand corner about this new request, and that's where we're going to focus. So I'm going to click on new request. And now this is a live system, so please don't submit a test request. There's not necessarily need to do so, but you can follow along with me if you like. We just won't click create when we're done with this. So this help request, I might say, accidentally uploaded the wrong PDF. And then I would want to provide a very thorough description of of whose profile I uploaded, the exact name of that PDF. Oh my goodness. The exact name of that PDF and any other information that that you can provide in that description. There's a spot for an attachment. So if I had a screenshot or an Excel spreadsheet, maybe it has a list of users or a PDF itself, something, I could attach it here. The next step is your category. So you'll want to select Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship. Again, remember, this is for this help desk is for all of Illinois WorkNet. So there are a lot of other programs here, and we want to select Illinois Works. And from there, then you'll be able to select the subcategory of where you're having this issue. Was it on intake? Did you accidentally upload the wrong diploma here? Or are you having an issue with a report? Are you having an issue adding a participant? When you go to add a participant, is it saying this user already exists, right? So that would be one you might need to select. And then the CC, again, you might want to see if we can get Steve Scott to come up here. Or so we might need Monica to be copied on all of our help desk tickets. So we would select her. And then you would put your name and information. Even though you're logged into IWRS, it's not defaulting, it's not pulling this information in. So you need to make sure you put your name and your email address. And then you'll want to put your organization name, right? They're not necessarily going to know which grantee you're with just based on your name. So you have to make sure it's a required field anyway, but you want to make sure you put your organization there and make sure you're entering it as your grantee name, right? So when you were in IWRS and you have your provider, so you might, I'm going to pick on a grantee. You might be Lewis University Joliet, right? Like a lot of other organizations, they go by maybe other names. A lot of times they go by IWE. They previously, they had just merged with Lewis University. So their previous name was St. Augustine. So there are a lot of different names they might go by. Make sure you're entering the name of the organization as it appears in IWRS. That would be very helpful. And then it asks for a phone number. And then, is this related to a particular customer? Yes, right? And by customer, they mean the profile. Like, so I did this accidentally to Dave Test, so I could put Dave Test's information there. And then what browser am I using? Am I using Edge or Chrome? Particularly if something's not displaying properly or you're not able to do something, it could be because of the browser. And then lastly, it asks, is this issue keeping you from moving forward? So please use this judiciously, right? If it is an urgent issue, if it's stopping all work from happening, make sure you go ahead and click that. If it's not, if there's other work you can still do, then leave that unchecked. And then you would, of course, today we're going to hit cancel down here, but otherwise you would click on create, and that would create your help desk ticket. And then it will take you to the My Tickets section where you would then see all of the resolved or open issues that you have. All right, I'm going to hand the screen back over to Jeff. Do we have any questions about the help desk ticket? It looks like there's a question.
Sorry,
in
I
the
was,
chat.
yeah.
How do we CC our grant manager? I'm not sure if that was entered before I walked through it, but essentially you put the email address of your grant manager into that CC box.
That was me, Dave. This is Gail. I meant, is the grant manager the only person we CC if we have a help request, so they also will get it?
Who else would you want to CC?
I just want to make, well, I might try to do all three of you guys. So if I really needed help, I might put Stevens, Dan, everybody's name out there.
I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that would not be a good idea. Only CC your grant manager. Very seriously, if everybody gets CC'd, then I'm going to assume somebody else is working on it. But if you need me to work on it, just CC me.
All right, got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I'm going to hand everything back over to, I think it's Anna. Are you going to be working on the evaluation?
Yes, I am.
Excellent. Well, thank you everybody for your time today.
Thank you, Dan. And we're going to try to do this fast. It's almost 12:30. Hopefully everybody's been on at least one of these before. We use Mentimeter for our evaluations. And so you can just click on the link that Steve kindly put in the chat and get to the right website, or you can type it in manually. You can see the information here on the slide. Or if you want, you can even go on through your phone if you don't want to toggle between sites. So I'm going to give folks a second to get in, and maybe we can move to the next slide so I can see how many people are coming in. Okay, I see we're getting started. We got 2 people have entered. You could, you can just click on that full link in the chat. Oh, I see. It says it's moving slow. Thanks, Linda. So you all are doing it. It's just Mentimeter is not responding very fast. Awesome. I see people are now starting to join. We've got 9. We have over 30 participants still in the room. So I'm going to just wait another 30 seconds or so for more people to join the fun. As you know, we are very intentional about continuous improvement. We've made improvements to the system this year based on grantee recommendations last year. I think we're doing a lot better on time. That was one of the suggestions, feedback suggestions. previously, we have adjusted our approach to make sure that we can finish on time, or today it might be just slightly over, but you know, you can see that we actually take your feedback very seriously, and we do appreciate everyone who is entering the Mentimeter so that we can get your input. All right, well, I'm going to move forward, and then please, if you are not in yet, then you can just catch up along the way. Please share your views on this training by rating the following statements from 1 is the lowest and 10 is the highest. To what extent did it meet your expectations? How likely are you to attend a similar event in the future? And how likely are you to recommend this training to others? I'm very pleased to see that it was helpful. And I think, you know, certainly the very applied and hands-on nature of it, I'm sure was helpful with that. So thank you. That's wonderful. Great. And I see we've got 20 people already who have responded. All right. Well, let's, you know, if you're still working on it, that's great. Know that we're not going to lose it if I move to the next screen, if you're still doing this. So we're going to move to the next screen. The course was relevant to what I wanted to learn about this subject matter. Do you strongly disagree is a 1, and then up to a 5, which is strongly agree. Oh, okay, great. First, somebody strongly agrees. Let's see. Wonderful. Glad this was helpful to what you needed. We've got 12 people who have responded, so keep coming. Don't worry about hurting our feelings if you don't agree. We're not just looking for affirmation. We want your honest feedback. And I see we have 18 people have responded, 19. All right, so, you know, for sure, it didn't quite hit the mark with at least one person, 1 or 2 maybe. So let's keep moving on, because we will actually get other feedback as to why. I plan to apply what I learned. Do you plan to apply what you learned? And I do see that most plan to apply what you learned, and that's great, because what that means is that you're in the right room and you're the person responsible for it. So I'm kind of gathering that maybe some people here aren't going to be the ones inputting things into the system. Let's move forward. What improvements might you recommend? This is something where you can type it in. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of time so you can gather your thoughts and type. And it is helpful, even if you're just saying none or I can't think of anything, because then at least we know that you've engaged with it. Otherwise, I might be waiting for you to answer. Great access to slides. Thank you for that feedback on WebEx. Yeah, 3 hours is too long of a training. The side-by-side screen training was great, wonderful. I was pleased with everything presented and able to follow and gather a great understanding. Thank you very much for that. Access to the training and need longer on-hand training. Yeah, some people it does take a little longer. Just so you know, this meeting has been recorded. And so you can always go onto the guidebook and locate the recording so you can watch it again if you need to. It was very long. Yeah, just too long. We get it. How swiftly will the recordings be posted on the partner's guide? Dan, do you have an answer to that? I want to say it's within 2 days.
Yeah, about 7 hours. So Dave normally makes it available same day. I send it to David, and then David, even once he uploads it, takes a minute for it to show on workNet. So but typically about 72 hours.
Right. Great. And I do see the comment about reducing the amount of time spent on information that was previously presented. And I know that we had a slightly different audience today. So we'll think about how can we navigate that so that we are valuing everyone's time. Great. Let's go to the next question. What did you find effective? If we make changes, what would you recommend we keep? While you're writing, I want to correct myself. Where the recording, to get to the recording, you go to workNet. What did you find effective? How to navigate the site? Great. Breakdown of everything, the opportunity to practice what we learned, hands-on learning. Keep sharing the screen to show step-by-step process, the hands-on learning, recordings being available for review afterwards. Great. Glad to know that that's helpful. Keep the practical portion. It was very engaging, showing the step-by-step process again, breaking midway through the program and having it be interactive, navigating through the process together. Glad that was helpful. All right, well, let's move to the last question. Is there anything else about this course that you think we should know? Anything that has not already been said that you think we should know? And feel free to just put an A or no. Thank you. I'm just going to give it another, thank you very much for that feedback. I'm going to give it another few seconds and let you finish. I know we did end a little bit late this time. Thankfully, we were not as late as in the past, but obviously there's still room for improvement there. We're going to go ahead and close out the meeting. We'll leave this up in case you're still typing. But please have a great rest of your day, great rest of the week. Moving forward, Thursday, we have another session. Gia, am I right? Seem to remember there being a session on Thursday.
Absolutely.
And
however, it is for,
go ahead.
Can you hear me, Anna?
Yeah.
Oh, can you hear me? Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, the session Thursday would be for renewals.
Yes. Okay. So we have a session Thursday for renewing grantees only. And have a great week. Thank you so much.